Welcome to the Tell Me Something Good podcast. Ranked by the International Association of Awesome Podcasts as the best podcast in the history of podcasts. Wait, is that a thing? I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, seeking to shine a light on all that is good in an ever-darkening world of negativity. Here's your host, Clint Swindall.
Hey everybody, I'm Clint Swindall, and this is the Tell Me Something Good podcast, the show that is all about building a more positive world by overcoming negativity. It is my goal each episode to engage your mind, encourage your heart, or enlighten your soul. I am happy you're here. This is episode 23 of the Tell Me Something Good podcast, brought to you by Texas Pepper Jelly, the home of some awesome products to enhance your culinary skills. They have all kinds of stuff, an entire line of seasonings and rubs, Craig's barbecue sauce, and of course, an impressive line of pepper jellies and rib candy. Who wouldn't want something called rib candy? If you like ribs, you've got to try this stuff. We've been using it on our competition ribs for a long time, and I'm here to tell you, the stuff is good. These products can take your backyard barbecue game to a whole new level. Check them out at texaspepperjelly.com. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope life is good for each and every one of you people kind enough to check in with us at this podcast. Our listener base seems to be growing each week, so I'm going to assume there may be some of you who are joining us for the first time. If you are new, I'm going to encourage you to jump back and listen to episode number 2. Well, actually, I'm going to encourage you to jump back and listen to all the episodes. What kind of a host would I be if I didn't do that? In fact, if you're new, here's everything you've missed.
Throughout the previous 22 episodes, I've done several things. Some episodes I provided meaningful content about how we can deal with all the negativity in the world. Some episodes I had a guest on the show to focus on good people out doing good stuff. Several segments appear throughout the episodes, including In Search of the Good Stuff. What are they bitching about now? Good news from around the world, and Ask Clint Anything.
And each episode ended with a challenge for listeners to consider before the next episode. And if there was any of that you didn't catch, feel free to jump back and catch it in more detail. In particular, I want to encourage you to listen to episode 2 because I provide my definition of negativity, and it sets the foundation for the entire podcast. In that episode, I share some research I found from the National Science Foundation that shows we each have up to 60,000 thoughts a day. And of these thoughts, 80% of them are negative. And what's even more amazing is that 95% of our negative thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before. So not only, apparently, do we focus primarily on negative things, well, we make it worse by reliving the same sad, miserable stories over and over. I have found that one of the reasons some people feel overwhelmed by negativity is they don't spend enough time appreciating the good stuff in their life. Since research shows that 80% of our daily thoughts are negative, true appreciation for the blessings in our life isn't getting much of our attention. One reason we don't reflect on the good is we don't consider things as being good for very long. We wanted the latest and greatest cell phone when it first came out. We got it, and we were happy and appreciated it for a short time. We then adjusted our expectation to the new status quo, and now we need more, like the next upgraded cell phone, to maintain the same level of happiness. You really wanted to sell that house. You considered the commission and worked hard to get it sold because you knew the joy it would bring. You closed on it. You popped a bottle of champagne to celebrate because you were happy for a short time. You then adjusted your expectation to the new status quo and now need more, like the next big deal, to maintain the same level of happiness. So why is that? Well, research shows why happiness and appreciation don't last all that long. Two positive psychologists, Philip Brinkman and Donald Campbell, wrote about Hedonic Adaptation, also referred to as the Hedonic Treadmill, back in 1971. The idea is that our level of happiness tends to return to where it started after the positive experience fades away. It is our happiness resting point, the place we return after good and bad experiences. One of the downsides of a podcast is you can't see anything, so I'll do my best to describe the image. Along the y-axis on the left, we have happiness. And along the x-axis on the bottom, we have time. Now, across the middle, we have a line representing our base level of happiness, our emotional baseline, if you will. As time goes by, life happens. Some things are good. These things make us happy and we experience an increase in our happiness level. For example, we got the new cell phone and experienced an increase in our happiness level when we bought it. The euphoria we experienced faded quickly and we returned to our base level of happiness. Essentially, we come down off of the high of a positive experience. Then some bad things happen. These things make us sad and we experience a decrease in our happiness level. For example, we dropped the new cell phone 2 days after we got it and experienced a decrease in our happiness level the moment we saw the crack in the screen. Just as the happiness we experienced when we bought the new phone faded quickly and we returned to our base level of happiness, the sadness we experienced fades quickly as well and we return to our base level of happiness. Essentially, we come back up from the low of a negative experience. Most people think they would be elated if they won a multi-million-dollar lottery, and no doubt they would, for a short time. Hedonic adaptation shows that the highest highs and the lowest lows fade in time. No matter how good or bad an experience makes you feel, you'll eventually return to your base level of happiness. And although we all return to our base level of happiness, we spend more time thinking back on those negative events because of our negativity bias. Another thing I talk about in episode 2. To overcome negativity in our lives, we must make an intentional effort to look for the good stuff to appreciate it. So how do we look for the good stuff? A couple things. 1, stop comparing yourself to others. It's hard to appreciate what we have, the good stuff, if we constantly compare ourselves to others. No matter how much success we achieve, there will always be someone who has something we don't. We'll see someone with a better relationship, better health, and more stuff. When we compare ourselves to others, we are focusing on their blessings and ignoring our own. While I enjoy social media as much as anyone, I almost always feel inadequate. I scroll through feeds where friends are often showcasing only the best aspects of their life. I bet it takes most people a dozen poses before they get that perfect profile picture. This perfection is an illusion, and it leads to feelings of disappointment. It's hard to appreciate what we have when we feel inadequate because we've been comparing ourselves to others. A great quote that supports this says, "Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle." Even if you're one of those people who insist on comparing yourself to others, it is nearly impossible for you to find somebody identical to you. Someone at the same age, with the same experiences, with the same breaks, with the same drive. We're all different, and we're all at a different place in this game we call life. One of the reasons we're so discouraged is we compare apples to oranges. We compare our beginning to someone else's middle. We've just started the business, and they've been doing it all their life. We just got to the point that planning for our future is important, and they got to that point a decade ago. So follow the words of that quote. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And the second thing is this. You need to count your collective blessings. It's easy to take things for granted when something goes from a desire to a perceived need in a short period. It's also easy to take things for granted when we're laser focused on the next faster, bigger, or stronger object. At some point, we need to look around to count our collective blessings, things other people dream about having. In fact, it's embarrassing how many good things we take for granted. Everyday things like clothes on your body and a roof over your head. If you have access to safe drinking water, you have a blessing 780 million people in the world don't have. If you have access to proper and regular food, you have a blessing 795 million people in the world don't have. Look around. The good stuff surrounds us. Practice gratitude by taking the time to count your collective blessings. We each live our lives trying to experience good stuff. Most of us avoid the bad stuff at all costs. Sadly, our negativity bias not only keeps us focused on the negative, it keeps us from seeing the good stuff. I encourage you to rise above that. Count your collective blessings. Stop comparing yourself to others and go looking for the good stuff.
You're listening to Tell Me Something Good with Clint Swindall.
The pandemic has caused so many people to focus on the things that have changed in their life. And since most people don't like change, it's kept them focused on the negative. There is perhaps no better time than now for people to go looking for the good. Sometimes seeing or hearing about other people's good stuff can help us focus on our own. I've been working hard in the middle of this pandemic to stay focused on the good, and I thought I'd share what I found in this segment called
In Search of the Good Stuff.
As a speaker, my life has changed significantly because of the pandemic. Much of my work has shifted from in-person events to the virtual world. The way I see it is this: I have choices. I can complain that my preferred method of sharing my thoughts on a stage, connecting with other human beings in person, has been taken away for the foreseeable future. I can complain that I'm being forced to learn all this new stuff. And for a non-technical guy without a 4-year-old child to figure it all out, it's been a challenge. I can sit back and wait for the day we begin to gather in groups again and hope I haven't been left behind. Or I can just curl up in the fetal position and wish things were as they used to be. None of that sounds fun to me, and none of it sounds like a life I'm willing to live. I prefer my other set of options. I can accept the fact that my preferred method of sharing my thoughts on a stage, connecting with other human beings in person, has simply been placed on hold. I can use the time I'm not driving to an airport, standing at a gate, sitting on a plane, riding in an Uber, and all the other downtime required to travel to and from those stages to develop new material, products and services that can make a difference in people's lives. I can value that time I now have as meaningful to spend time with my wife. I can appreciate the fact that when we do begin gathering again, and we will, I will have a whole new set of technical skills and a fully equipped home studio that will allow me to create new offerings to support the work I'm doing on stages across the country. So, my good thing this week is perspective. How I choose to see what happens in my life as good instead of bad. I hope you can do the same. Other than finding my own good stuff to keep it all in perspective, I like to see what good stuff is happening in other people's lives as well. I found some this week, and I'd like to share it with you in this segment called
Good News from Around the World.
Oh, the little joys of life. 72% of Americans in a new poll said that they are more likely to find little joys during the summertime, and that's especially true this year. 83% of respondents agreed. It's the little things in their day that bring the most joy. And just as many say these little things have become even more important to them in the past few months. Luckily, the average respondent experiences 4 of these small things every day. Conducted by one poll, the survey found many of the little things respondents look forward to relate to nature and the great outdoors. The third most popular little joy was feeling the sun on my face. Listening to rainfall or a thunderstorm while inside, the arrival of a blue sky sunny day, and the smell of the ocean all made it into the top 30. But it was family and friends that were a key factor in a third of the top 10 little joys. Not surprisingly, in 2020, seeing a loved one after being apart was number 1. Sleeping in a freshly made bed, having time to myself, and getting something for free rounded out the top 5 answers. Who doesn't love finding money? That was also mentioned. For many who look forward to something in the kitchen, the smell of freshly made baked goods and the first sip of coffee in the morning was a favorite answer. We've seen the joy that comes from these indulgences and know that celebrating the small moments in life is critical when it comes to navigating stressful times, noted Katie Klein, Vice President of Marketing at Bubby's Ice Cream, the company that conducted the poll. And so here are the top 10 little joys as found in their survey. Number 1, seeing a loved one after being apart for a while. Number 2, sleeping in that freshly made bed. Number 3, feeling the sun on my face. Number 4, getting something for free. Number 5, having time to myself. 6, hugging a loved one. 7, finding money I didn't know I had. 8, the first sip of coffee in the morning. 9, the clean feeling after a shower. And 10, receiving an "I've been thinking about you" text. What are your favorite little joys? Would sunshine and a freshly made bed make your top 5? And then there's this. Paris Williams is 6 years old. Like many of her first grade peers, she's adorable. But this little girl is also driven by a mission to help others who are less fortunate. So driven, in fact, that she's launched her own nonprofit foundation, Paris Cares, to feed the homeless in her area. Paris's mom, Alicia Marshall, says her daughter's inspiration to become a hands-on Good Samaritan was the title character of Carrie Chadwick Deal's children's book, One Boy's Magic, who also uses his powers to feed the homeless. She was reading books at home about giving, and she came home one day and said, "I want to give back to the homeless. What can we do to help the homeless?" Marshall told her local news station. We kind of brainstormed some ideas, and we came up making care packages. I wanted to give something to the homeless, Paris explained, like the boy in the book. Paris might not have had a magic wand, but she didn't let that stop her. Turning instead to more practical magic and the help of her parents, Paris assembled and delivered via non-contact drop-off more than 500 care packages containing food and other essentials to downtown St. Louis's homeless, as well as handing out approximately 250 meals to essential workers. But Paris wasn't satisfied to simply donate goods. It was important to her to forge a bond with the people she was trying to help. After filling each package herself, Paris drew a picture or wrote a personal message on each one to create the kind of human connection so many of the homeless sorely lack. It makes me really proud because with everything that's going on in the world, this small child who is entering first grade has such a big heart, Marshall said. She wants to give. She wants to help others. Paris has already accomplished a lot by anyone's standards, but if she has it her way, she's only getting started. She's looking toward holding a Thanksgiving hot food drive for the homeless and also hopes to start a Christmas toy fund for kids in need. I want to inspire people to do good things, Paris said. Out of the mouths of babes, it seems, comes not only wisdom and truth, but kindness and generosity as well. All right, everybody, before I give you a challenge, I want to remind you that this episode of Tell Me Something Good has been brought to you by Texas Pepper Jelly, the home of some of the greatest products to take your cooking game to a whole new level. From their line of seasonings and rubs, barbecue sauce, and the original rib candy, rib sauce, and pepper jellies, you'll find everything you need to become the hero of your household. Check them out at texaspepperjelly.com. And now the challenge. Actually, 2 challenges. The first is related to last week's episode. I challenged listeners to determine what makes a good day by tracking the specific activities, events, and circumstances contributing to what you might consider a good day. I challenged you to track those things for 7 days with the idea that a quote-unquote good day can only be replicated if we know what actually goes into making it a good day. If you did that, good for you. Use what you learned to increase the number of good days you have. And if you didn't do it, no one knows but you. Here's your chance for a do-over. Knock it out for the next 7 days. And if you didn't listen to the episode, go back and listen so it will all come together. You'll be glad you did. And the second challenge relates to today's topic. Back in episode 2, I shared with listeners that each Tuesday is what I refer to as Text Tuesday. I scroll through the contact list in my phone and find someone I've not communicated with in a long time. Life gets busy, and we lose contact. Every Tuesday morning, I find someone on that list and send up a prayer for them. I then send them a text telling them I'm thinking about them and hoping all is well. I was reminded of the significance of this weekly routine when I saw it on the top 10 list I shared today. One of those little joys to receive a text with something as simple as, "I've been thinking of you." I challenge you to adopt this simple little routine, and what better time than today? So the moment this podcast ends, find someone in your phone and send the text. Well, that's all for today's episode of the Tell Me Something Good podcast. Come back again next week. It's going to be a day of celebration because next Tuesday, September the 1st, is the 20th anniversary of our company, Verbalocity. Come celebrate with us. I'm going to share some of our journey and some of the lessons we learned along the way. In the meantime, be listening for our special episode of Champagne Friday coming up this Friday morning. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. As always, if you're liking the podcast, leave me a rating and review. Help me out with a little social proof that we're spreading a little positivity to the world with the Tell Me Something Good podcast. Also, jump on over to findthegoodinlife.com if you'd like to share some good stuff in your life. While you're there, you can share your thoughts on the podcast. What do you like? What do you not like? You can also ask a question. Click on the question or something good for the podcast button right there on the front page and give me some feedback. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'll be praying for God to bless you in mighty ways. Now, get out there and love on somebody.
You've been listening to the Tell Me Something Good podcast. The content of the podcast is meant to engage, encourage, and enlighten you to become more positive. It's not meant to diagnose, treat, or replace the personalized care provided by a trained professional. If you're struggling with depression or mental health issues, please reach out to a counselor for diagnosis and treatment. Until next time, be positive, people.